everyone, welcome to You Can Do Math. Today we are going to learn how to solve quadratic equations by factoring when the leading coefficient is just 1. All right, guys, so I just love teaching quadratics. I love solving quadratics. I love graphing quadratics. I don't know why, I just have a love for quadratics. Okay, so for our first example, we are going to start off with, let's do x squared plus 2x minus 15, and it equals 0. So I want you to notice something. Our equation here is in standard form, right? We have our x squared that is listed first, then our second term has that variable with it. The last term, that negative 15, that does not have a variable, which is our constant, is last in those three, and it does equal 0. So that's what we would like to do and have it in standard form before we start to factor. Okay, so taking a look at the left side, I know because my leading coefficient is going to be 1 that it is going to break into 2 parentheses. Negative 15 on the side can, let's see, factors 5 and 3, and because I need a positive 2 for my middle term, I need a positive 5 and a negative 3. So x times x is x squared, plus 5 and a negative 3, and that still equals 0. So now what we can do is we can break this into 2 separate equations where x plus 5 equals 0 and the x minus 3 equals the 0, and then solve them separately. So for the first equation, we'd subtract 5 from either side of the equation and get x is negative 5, and then we'll add 3 to the other side, and x is 3. That's awesome. What does it mean? Well, if we were to graph that quadratic, right? So if I were to just kind of draw like a little graph over here, that means that on the x-axis, that's where this parabola, right, this U-shaped graph, that's where it's going to cross the x-axis at. And I think that's why it's just so beautiful. So if I go negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a positive 1, 2, 3, my parabola is going to go through only those 2 places at x, because that's what x equals, negative 5 and 3. Told you it's cool. All right, let's go ahead and do another problem. Let's go ahead and do x squared plus 11x. Let's do plus 30 equals 0. All right, we're in standard form. Our leading coefficient is 1. I know I'm going to break this into 2 parentheses. Don't forget, still equals 0. Let's factor this quadratic. We've got 30. 30 breaks down to 10 and 3, but it doesn't get me my middle term of 11. What about 5 and 6? Yeah, 5 and 6 works. Okay, so x times x is x squared. 5 and 6 are both going to be positive for this example because I got 2 positives, a plus 5 and a plus 6 gives me that 11. And now, since we have factored our quadratic, we can break it into 2 separate equations. X plus 5 equals 0, x plus 6 equals 0, and then solve separately. So subtract 5 from each side. X is a negative 5, subtract 6 from each side, and x is a negative 6. That also means that both of these values are the only 2 numbers in the entire world that will work for this equation, right? You can plug in a negative 5, you can plug in a negative 6, and both of those, when we plug them into the x's, will give us 0. All right, so the next example, example number 3, I want you to try. So let's go ahead and do, what do I want to give you? Let's do x squared minus 11x plus 28 equals 0. So please write this down, pause the video, try this one out on your own. Okay, how did you do? Oh, I can't hear you, but I hope you did good. And if not, that's okay. Let's keep going at it. Let's go ahead and break it out into 2 parentheses, make it equal 0. 28. Did you guys pick 7 and 4? I hope so, but both of them have to be negative, right? Because a -7 times a -4 is going to give us a +28, and it's also when we combine them and add them, we will get -11. So x and x, so we have -7, -4, and we can now break that into our two separate equations of x minus 7 equals 0 and x minus 4 equals 0. And I will add the 7 to the other side and get x equals a +7, and the other equation, x is going to be a +4. Perfect. Those are the two solutions to our quadratic equation, solving by factoring. I got a bonus one for you though. So let's do one more. Let's call this a bonus. Let's make this 2 terms instead. So let's go ahead and solve x squared plus 2x equals 0. All right, so let's go ahead and solve this. We're still a quadratic. We have x squared. The leading coefficient is still 1, but instead of a trinomial, 3 terms, we only have 2 terms. And so it does not break into 2 parentheses, but we can pull out the greatest common factor. So both of our terms we can divide by x. And when we do that, x is multiplied by the quantity of x plus 2, and it still equals 0. Now it still applies. We can still write 2 separate equations. This x right here, this x will still equal 0 right here, like the outside over here will still equal 0. So we can say that x equals 0, and then we can also say that x plus 2 equals 0. So the equation on the left side is already solved. It equals 0, and if we subtract 2 to the other side, we have x equals -2. Okay, so what does that mean exactly on a graph? So if we were to draw like a graph off to the side, that means that our parabola, right, is going to go through the x-axis at 0, which happens to be, right, the origin, and -2. Aw, kind of didn't draw that very well. Oh well. Okay, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please make sure to like this video. I know some of you are submitting your work, and I don't know if you've watched it or you're using Photomath, or I have no idea. But hey, listen, do me a favor. Send me your work. Send it in an email. Please do not forget. Take a picture of your work when you're doing your homework, and also like and subscribe to this video. Okay, see you guys. Bye.